Hello and welcome to our presentation where we will show you how you can implement digital personnel files in your organization using d.velop documents from Microsoft 365 and make your HR department ready for the age of remote working. I'll take you in the beginning through some of the challenges that we've seen with the customers we work with in their HR departments when they're working with documents. I'll then show you in a live context some of the approaches we take to meeting those challenges, and we'll do a brief review of the benefits at the end and the big picture of how you could approach a project like this in your own organization. Let's start off with the challenges that we see. I think first and foremost are the challenges posed very simply by the good old physical folder, the paper document, the thing that's tied to one specific time and location that you usually only have one of in your organization, so that when people need information about an employee, they either have to request that information, have it sent to them, have copies made, etc. That becomes a real impediment to accessing information quickly and easily, and is usually a burden on the HR department, who play the role of information provider to other parts of the organization. On top of that, if additional information is being stored in subsidiaries or other locations, the storage structures used for that may not always be clear. People may not be sure where they should be storing things. Even within the context of the folders themselves, sometimes documents are just sort of chronologically stored, but not by type, so that it makes it quite difficult in a file folder for somebody who's been an employee for a long time to find a specific piece of information. On top of that, if you want to go a further step and make information available to employees where they can see their own personnel files or the parts that they're supposed to be able to see, that of course is basically not really possible in a paper world, whereas we will show you how employee self-services solutions can be augmented with what we do in the digital world. So finding that information I just touched on, that you can basically see how time intensive that is, especially when multiple people are requesting information from one central source, and moving to a digital personnel folder with a clear structure basically takes that problem away. In establishing this kind of solution, we're also very aware that we set this up in a way that helps you fulfill the legal compliance obligations that you have. Your documents are stored in your own SharePoint tenant in your geographic location. We can use document retention rules that are available out of the box from Microsoft to ensure that documents remain available as long as they should be. And basically, providing an overview of all of the documents and a way of ascertaining that you have everything that you need. So you can easily and quickly see, are necessary documents for a particular employee in a particular context, are they there? Are there ways of checking that, of searching the system to make sure that you have requisite documents stored? And once you get to those documents, because we integrate the versioning capabilities of Microsoft with our solution, you're easily able to see what is the most current and valid version of a specific document. Those are some of the challenges that we see, and then to touch on how we approach those, we'll look at that more in the live context. But first of all, you're faced with the decision of, why should I do this? What are some of the 5 good reasons for taking this step to implementing digital personnel files? The first 3 we've touched on, right? So it's that central access. It's being able to get to it anywhere, anytime, whether your HR employee is in their home office 100 miles from your main office or not, or whether somebody's requesting information from Hong Kong and you're based in a central location in Germany, sort of like d.velop with our remote office in Hong Kong as well. So you're gaining transparency on all of this. You're saving time, making things available, and benefiting from that step into the digital world. And that last 5th point is I think, sort of the dot on top of the I, as the Germans would say. It's the cream on the cake. It's once you've gone to a digital context, you're then able to set up processes and workflows based on these documents that you simply couldn't do if they were locked into the good old physical file folders. So let's have a quick look at how information comes into a system like this. Basically, we're able to ingest information from file shares. I mean, often if organizations have done a first step towards digitalization, they may be using structures in a protected file share. for storing information, but we can make that a lot more easy, accessible, and powerful. But of course, we need to get the information in from the existing system. We can do that. We give you tools for integrating into Microsoft Office products, into Outlook and emails, to get those documents and emails into the system easily. I'll show you how that's done. Of course, you have classic paper documents that need to be scanned and information won from those documents so that they can be searched in the system. And you need, in a perfect world, of course, an integration into your HR software that lets you quickly and easily move from that solution to the documents that we have stored. And once all of that comes into the system, then we can set up that structure you see at the bottom here, ensure the long-term archiving of the documents, create the detailed structures and the file folders, and add workflow processes on top. So let's move over into the live system and see what all of this could look like. As you can see here in our presentation environment, we've created an intranet for an imaginary company and an area here for the HR department where we have a subsite with personnel files. And let's just basically go through this. You can see over on the right-hand side that we have links to specific employees as straight links into their personnel files. In the middle part, we have various quick links that can be adapted to your needs. So maybe a quick access to an advanced search functionality or to very specific documents or views in the system. And of course, we can integrate our quick search bar anywhere you want into your SharePoint intranet. So for today, I'm going to be using a specific case, mostly an employee by the name of Annie Beck, whose personnel file I'm going to call up here just by clicking straight onto the link over on the right-hand side. That'll take us into a view across basically her entire personnel file. But there are other ways to get to that, and we'll come back to some things like the advanced search options later on. So by making this click, I open what we call the d.velop center. This is where we create complex structures for storing information. And as you can see over on the left side, we have a view on this person with their personnel number. Over on the right-hand side, where I am right now, we can see a first view on documents, and in the middle, we can see, or rather on the left side, sorry, we can see that the person accessing Annie Beck's personnel folder also has access to various other employees. So based on my access rights as an HR manager, I might see everybody's with maybe some management exceptions. I'm then as a team leader would have access to a reduced subset of employees, and we can make that quite detailed in terms of how we restrict and allow access into the system. All right. So again here, I think we're just showing briefly that we could call up any of those at any given time. In the middle here, that's sort of like the back of one of these folders, I guess. That would be where you would have the classic overriding information about that employee, their name, their personnel number. I can see here what their job title is, and any number of other pieces of information that you have as metadata tied to this personnel file is available in the middle. Again, that middle area, you can sort of reduce that and get it out of the way. We have plenty of room here, so I'll leave it there. And over on the right-hand side, you can see how we view various documents. And what you're seeing across the top there is basically the same thing as what we were seeing on the left side. So it shows you the different subtypes of documents we've created within the context of the file folder, again, as you see here over on the left side. So two ways of navigating to information. And I'm going to go into contracts here. What we've seen in this first screen were sort of various PDFs and scanned documents. Here we're seeing some emails and various types of documents as well. So basically our solution leverages the Microsoft OneDrive viewer, which means that we can support some 300 types of documents, document types from email to Word documents, whatever you like. Even things that aren't particularly document-oriented. So here we have list items, for instance, based on those various deadlines that we've put into this folder structure. So we have that data available, and we can use information from list items, for instance, to kick off workflows when particular deadlines need to be met, etc. Let's move over to the contracts part here as well, just to show you some Word documents. And I'd like to use the contract of employment here as a use case example. So if I click on that particular document, what you'll see on the right side first is that preview offered by the OneDrive viewer. So first I see the document, and as you can see in the middle, that view changes. So I'm now seeing the metadata relevant to this particular document rather than the overriding personnel file. And that shows me the contract type, modified information, when it was last changed, etc. And up there at the top, you can see various icons with different types of functionality that we can decide with you will be available. So one example might be leveraging Microsoft's share capability to share a document. Of course, much easier here. We know that functionality is there, but we give you the way of quickly and easily accessing documents. And then once you're at the document you need, you can very quickly share that with somebody, or go into the document, check it out to process it, or have a look at the version history and see previous versions of that document. So all of that's quickly and easily available. What I'm going to do here is open this document outside of our viewer. So if you have your Microsoft 365 plan, what we do is automatically open that in Word Online. And this then lets you make changes to a document and create a new version of that document. So just to make this simple, we'll just get rid of that number there, so it's visibly obvious that we've made a change. As soon as that change has been made, that's saved online, as you can see here, back into our system. And when I basically close out that tab or move to our tab and refresh that, then we'll see that we now have a newer version of that document basically on top. Okay, maybe a little bit too quickly here. Give it a slight second across the internet. Okay, third time's a charm, and there's the document with the most current version available. And as you can see also in that document, I didn't point that out before, but you can see here ANIBAC, address, etc. So these kinds of documents can also be created based on information in our system. And I'll show you in a second how we do that with a template-based approach. Let's have a look here at, I think we're going to have a look here at the absences. Okay, there you can see in the background that something's popped up in the system. I'll come back to that again in a moment. Right, so let's go into the absences here. And you can see here that we have subfolder types as well. So you were wondering perhaps why that was dark blue. When I open that up, I can see there are two types of absences. There are leave requests and sick leaves, for instance. And here I'm going to show you how we use a document template for a leave request, for instance, which I'll give a specific name. And we'll create a Word document based on this template that's automatically stored in the right location in the system and is also enriched with document from the system. So we've created, based on an empty leave request form, a leave request for ANIBAC. Her information's already there. Her manager's been inputted into the form. And now, beyond just starting this or creating the document, I want to start a small workflow leveraging Power Automate in this case. And I'm going to send this for approval to her manager, who is usually Judith Rover, but I'm working with a different demo user today. So we're going to use Austin Fraser. That's the new manager. And basically, when I save this document, that will automatically kick off a process that goes to Austin Fraser, who will then be able to either approve of this leave request for ANIBAC or tell the poor person that they have to work for another 2 months before they get some time off. All right, so let's, while that's happening in the background, that's an asynchronous process, may take a second before it's there. I'll just use the time to show you something I talked about before. We did a quick link to ANIBAC's personnel file before. I explained that we have functionality like quick search, and we also have an advanced search capability in the system. So because we have all of this rich set of information about the employees, let's make use of that. So in the advanced search, I could decide to search across the entire personnel file, or maybe subsets of that personnel file, maybe just the correspondence or through their timesheets. In this case, I'm going to go look for entire personnel files. And then I can say, okay, I want to filter that down to say, let me see all the employees who are still actively employed with my organization, and hit the search button, and I get a search set down here for all of those employees. And as you can see here, I have a full set of information that I can filter, and with that little D symbol there, clicking on any one of those will take us back to that personnel file view that we started off with for any one of these given employees, as we're doing here, going back to AnyBack's personnel file. And all of its content. So that's a great little tool. You can use that to filter through information in a very detailed way, save standard searches that you use time and again for your daily work. Okay, we had exactly one other thing here that I'd like to show you, and that's that we've been doing that, just accessing this information in the context of an intranet. Of course, your daily work could also be happening within the context of Teams. So here, again, we've integrated that view for an HR department, for instance, straight into Teams. It could also be a link for a particular employee, like Annie back here, for instance, who might be accessing her own personnel file at any given time and seeing the appropriate subset of information in that personnel file. So that's very easy to do and to build into your Teams processes. And aside from that, of course, one other thing that we can do is to build all of this into things like Outlook. I'll come back to that though in a second. It just occurs to me, of course, that we were also talking about processes. So we saw a little pop-up before in Teams activity, and that was basically the leave request form that had popped up for Austin Fraser. Here we've had a look at the document itself. So Austin Fraser has seen that. He can make a comment here and say, okay, that's fine. He's going to approve this request. And so we've used basically Teams as a means of providing that information and quickly communicating with other people within the organization. So that's one way of doing this. And another way of doing that might be to leverage email and say, okay, we'll send a company internal email to Austin Fraser. And here we'll see that's in fact the same process. It's sent out in parallel in our system, and it's already been completed, as we see. But we could have a quick look at one of the other cases on here. So I can see there's, again, another request for approval, and I could sign off on that here. I could view the document from here. I could reject the document, and it's basically the same approach. So either using Teams or using Outlook. Basically, again, very simple ways of leveraging Power Automate together with our personnel file approach. So let's have a look here at a document that's in your Outlook system. One thing you're seeing over here on the right is a way that we integrate not only into Teams, but into Outlook itself using our sidebar application. So that shows you basically a view on SharePoint and those same structures that we were looking at. So with the appropriate rights, I can see a personnel file. I can open that up. And if I have communication or documents there that I want to see directly here, I can access those directly from the sidebar. I can also use this as a means of storing documents straight into the personnel file. So if I have an attachment, for instance, here like this application, I ascertain that needs to go into the subfolder applications for Annie back. I just drop that document straight out of Outlook into that sidebar, and I can see that I have all of the pertinent email information. It's inherited the personnel number, personnel name, etc. And basically, you're done at that point, unless you have any additional comments to be made. Then you can simply upload that document into SharePoint, and it's now part of Annie back's permanent personnel record. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, I think that was the end of that bit, if I recall correctly. Let's move on and see what what benefits you can garner from this system and what the big picture would be for approaching a project like this. So in summary, basically, what I see is that you gain an extraordinary level of visibility. You have an overview of all of the relevant information and can integrate that into various parts of your IT environment, whether it's Outlook, whether it's Teams, or maybe into an HR application itself. You ensure the basis for meeting legal compliance regulations. You retain your documents automatically over an extended period of time. We make use of document management functionality like templates, sharing, versioning to organize, create documents, and things like search and automated workflows to very quickly work on the documents at hand. And as a result of all of that, basically, you're increasing efficiency in your organization. You're saving time, space, and money. In a concrete form, how could you approach this in your organization? I always think that's important. So out of the box, we can set up a solution for you with that kind of a personnel file structure. You could then start storing documents into that structure and then go on in iterative steps. So the next step might be integration into your HR systems and being able to access this information straight out of that application. We might then look at migrating existing documents off of file shares or out of folders that need to then have their content scanned and moved over into our system, at which point these things would then disappear. We can then talk about perhaps simply starting with HR users at the beginning and then moving out to the rest of the organization, letting line managers have access to their employees' folders as well, and maybe in a final step, moving to employee self-service. And then once you've got all of that done, then you can do further integration work, like for instance, what we do in our own organization, which is to have all of our digital payslips automatically stored in the digital personnel file. So doing that, or adding digital signature capability in order to make the process of signing contracts with your employees simple, fast, and paperless. So those are a few ideas to take with you. I hope this has been a bit of an eye-opener on what you might be able to do in terms of making your HR department digital. And if you have any other questions, please come back and ask.